This morning I woke up early to order myself coffee so my husband could take our son to pick it up and surprise me. Then they went to the grocery store and thoughtfully picked out my favorite breakfast and came home. My husband made half of the breakfast and then asked me to make the other half. No problem. He acknowledged that he was asking me to do the work and still taking credit for the benefit of our kids' experience and memories. It was no problem until he went upstairs to go to the bathroom, and after 45 minutes I walked upstairs to check on him and he was asleep in our bed. He slept the entire afternoon. Later that day I was doing the absolute mountain of dishes, my third load for the day, that's another story, and he asked me to make a grocery list. I asked if he could please make the list because I am in the middle of doing the dishes, and further tried to coax him by using Mother's Day in a playful way. I really didn't want to drop what I was doing to look in the fridge he was already standing right in front of to tell him what we needed for dinner. He knows what the ingredients are, he could easily look himself, but he insisted I help him. I was super frustrated, so I took a deep breath, washed and dried my hands, and then opened the fridge and started telling him what we need. He could sense my frustration and called me on it. I explained that I was really hoping he could make a list himself just this once because I was in the middle of doing the dishes. I explained that when I make a grocery list I just look at what we have and write down what we don't have, and I didn't understand why he needed my help. He started talking over me to say if I had a problem making a grocery list with him I should just have told him. I told him that I did communicate that with him. He doubled down and told me that I need to learn some patience. I smiled and said Happy Father's Day, because it was the nicest thing I could think to say. That completely set him off. He went off on me, refused to get ingredients to make our dinner, bought dinner for only himself and our kids, and has been giving me the silent treatment for over an hour. He says I went too far. Ada? ETA, wow, I did not realize I was going to wake up to so much to read. Thank you for all of your feedback. I have been enjoying my self-brewed coffee this morning and taking in your responses. I have a lot to look over and think about. I know divorce is the obvious answer. Edit 2. No, divorce isn't the obvious answer for this specific incident. Edit 3. I mean the idea of divorce is not solely based on this one specific incident. Several people have commented thinking everyone is jumping to divorce based on this one situation. It is more complex than this one day. No, I'm not using Reddit as a poll for whether or not to leave my marriage. Tell how to make Reddit paragraphs. Both of our mothers are dead, unfortunately. Our children are 6 and under. It is common for parents to help and facilitate the day. 6-year-olds and toddlers can't be responsible for celebrating their parents. I didn't expect anything from him. I know it's just a Hallmark consumerism holiday. People who have commented are correct in saying that this incident is just representative of every other day, but magnified by the fact that Mother's Day was a particularly shitty day to choose to be particularly shitty. I felt like maybe I was TA for making the petty comment. I am ND and sometimes I have trouble picking up on if I did something wrong that I maybe didn't realize was wrong to say or do. Update 1. Since Sunday I have not lifted a single finger for baby Sinclair, my internal nickname for him. Unless it directly impacts our kids, every time he requests my help or to do something for him that he can do himself I just use my absolute sweetest voice, let him know he does. He need my help and I believe in his ability to complete the task himself. Then I smile and walk away. The third time I did this, he said I was making him uneasy. I could not help but to LOL, which made him announce that he felt more uneasy. I know it wasn't kind, but I calmly told him he is a pathetic human. I told him I'm sorry it has to be me, but someone in his life needs to tell him to grow the fuck up. I told him I care about him and I love him, but I will not tolerate being treated with disrespect even one more day. He said I am abusive. The actual audacity. I spared the divorce conversation, for safety and because I have said many times before I want to leave and financially it isn't possible right now. Side note, I tried to leave last year because he was making me feel unsafe and his behavior was erratic. I went to the emergency room in a mental breakdown and told them about the abuse, which they noted in detail on my file. They asked about any plans to escape and I told them I had it covered, and answered their questions about my plan. I had been planning for our escape for a year leading up to this. They told me they had to document the reported abuse in my file. I asked them to check my chart to make sure it is not tied to his account. They looked at it in front of me and said they made sure he wasn't on my emergency contacts or attached to my chart in any way, but then guess who got an email with my chart notes detailing his abuse and my exit plan before I even got home? I had to cool things down and start over with a new plan that I kept entirely to myself. At this point though, he knew I had saved up money to leave, so most of my savings was depleted within a couple of months. I eventually left with our kids with far less savings, and it didn't take long for me to realize I could not sustain the cost of my original bills, still in my name, and new bills in addition to legal assistance and the overall cost of starting over. Our leaving caused him to spiral and he went back to therapy. Soon after, we started to dip our toes into visiting each other, mostly because I didn't want to leave our kids with him. We stuck to outdoor public activities as a family. He has always been able to wear me down and talk me out of a divorce, and this ended up no differently. Even though I know I'm not an anomaly, I felt ashamed and like a complete failure for going back. Surprisingly, he never actually changed. Anyway, back to present day, I began to gray rock to throw off his cycle of attempting to rope me back into the argument from the other day. I have calmly listened to him gush over his love for our family, and how much he loves and appreciates me and thinks I am an amazing mom. He says he loves me, but all I hear in my head is his voice screaming fucking bitch at me. It all sounds so obviously disingenuous. I told him his words mean literally nothing while his behavior is the same. It's like saying waffles have legs. It sounds unbelievable, and if I don't see it with my own eyes, I'm not believing it. I told him regardless of if in the end we stay together or not, we need to go back to therapy as a duo and separately. I told him he needs to take steps today to move forward with therapy and treating his mental health appropriately. He agreed, but no evidence of walking waffles yet. I am surprised at my ability to completely refuse to do anything he can do himself. I'm more surprised that he's actually doing the tasks himself. I have tried this before and he ultimately bullies me into doing the task. Not this time. He keeps complaining about his results in ways that are so juvenile and manipulative, always leaving the impression that if I had just done it for him it would have been done correctly. I just smile and tell him he did a good job with the task and tell him that it sounds like he needs more practice and eventually it will become second nature. I am feeling his attempts to make me miserable, but it is rallying right off of me. At least for now. I cannot express enough how much I appreciate the support and validation here. I appreciate the married people who have shared what their day was like on Sunday, and every day, as a healthy couple. For those of you who have asked why I am taking to the internet with this in the first place, I have been isolated from my circle for so long my relationships no longer exist. I have limited family period, and no family nearby. My mom is dead. My dad sucks. My siblings mostly suck. I have no friends. I work virtually and don't have friendships with my coworkers because we rarely socialize and have opportunities to bond. I don't have opportunities to interact with adults very often. Isn't that the beauty of the internet? Despite my logical brain, years of gaslighting along with my neurodivergence have made it sometimes feel impossible to trust my own judgment. If you are offended by me posting this and have taken the time to voice your disgust for me in my post, I just want to let you know I have processed your complaints and directed them to the correct department. Update 2. First, since Mother's Day he has not shown any sort of attempts for progress. Surprise. He has lost his control and repeatedly called me a fucking BTCH and other awesome pet names for his minor irritations towards me. Example, I asked him if he wanted my help bringing in groceries. Apparently he wanted to do it himself to let me relax, and my offering ruined his plan, so he was essentially throwing an adult version of a tantrum. I explained that it doesn't feel like a genuine gesture, especially because now I'm being yelled at for offering to help? LOL. Okay, pal. At one point I became petty, whoops, and told him to use I statements because that's his go-to therapy speak that he uses on me as a dog whistle during arguments and therapy appointments. He lost his shit, which then made me laugh because I literally do not understand if this is really his perception of reality. I can't take him seriously. I find myself laughing more now than ever, and it's not to mock him, I just can't control my disbelief and don't know how else to cope at this point. Second, I have realized that while I do love and care about him, it is clear that he does not respect me as a person, a mother, or his partner. He doesn't respect our kids. I can't realistically continue living with someone who tries to control my entire life. What kind of life is that to live? I took advice from many comments left on my original post and reached out to friends and family I had been isolated from. The reception was better than I anticipated. I didn't expect the hurt I felt when I found out every single one of them said they wondered if I was in an abusive marriage, but not one of them ever asked me directly when I completely withdrew. I don't blame them, but it was hard to ignore the pain I felt from that. This was also a reason I never reached out to anyone when things got really bad. It seemed like they have their own lives to worry about and clearly weren't concerned about my absence. A couple of the people I reached out to were lifelong friends that I had to formally end friendships with when I started dating my husband because of his jealousy, and I never got to mourn those friendships. It felt like a piece of me that had been broken began to heal. Anyway, it was a positive step because some of my family members were relieved I opened up to them, and now I don't feel so isolated and alone. So thank you to everyone who encouraged me to do that. 4. I am not sure what my next steps are, but I am feeling more confident in my path forward. Now on to second story. Encountered my father's funeral thief turned friend. We bonded over loss, exams, and surprising dinners in my apartment. 2 years ago, I returned home from my father's funeral. As soon as I opened the door to my apartment, a guy holding a crowbar came out from my kitchen holding my TV. I live in the city, so robberies are common. The guy began shouting at me and he clumsily dropped my TV and began holding the crowbar like it was a baseball bat. I was so stunned at what was happening that I didn't move. The guy screamed at me to empty my pockets. From the stress of the last few days with my father passing away, I simply started crying. Not out of fear at what was happening, but because this was literally the worst time of my life. The worst moment. The worst minute and second. While crying hysterically, I gave the guy my wallet. I just sat on my floor and hugged my knees and told him, through my tears, to take whatever you want. He hesitated, looked down at me. He dropped my wallet and sat down beside me. Immediately, he began to comfort me. He began to apologize. He put my TV back on the table and told me it wasn't damaged. He told me that he lost his job and that his mom needed medicine that he couldn't afford and that they were homeless. He told me all of this while I just wailed. I cried for my father, who was lost. I cried for my future, For it was uncertain, and I cried because my home had been intruded on in the most violent way. For a good 10 minutes I sat on the floor with a guy who had every intent to rob me, telling me that it would be okay and that he was sorry. He begged me not to call the police. I just started screaming at him to get out. He ran away so fast that he left the crowbar. I threw it after him as he ran down the street. 2 days later, I came home from work and he was sitting in front of my door. I was so terrified that I pulled out my phone, but he had this look on his face of I'm not sure how to describe it, remorse, regret. He told me that he told his mom what he did, and his mom made me some soup. He handed me this tiny bowl wrapped in tin foil. Again, I was stunned and overwhelmed and angry that I slapped the bowl out of his hands and it shattered on the floor. I told him to leave or I was calling the police. He left. I remember, he looked upset. I left the soup and shattered bowl outside my door, almost as a warning for him to not come back. About 3 months after that, I got a note in my mail slot from the guy. He told me his mother had passed away and that he was no longer homeless and that he had a job. He wanted to repay me for breaking into my apartment. He wrote down his address and told me that I was welcome to break into his place if I wanted, but he didn't have much stuff. This all overwhelmed me. I threw away the letter, but I remembered his address. I remember walking by there one day, out of curiosity. It was a ratty apartment building across the city. He was walking up to his room and he saw me. He waved. I turned away and left. He ran after me, apologized again. Told me that he never meant to do what he did. He showed me the program from his mother's funeral that he kept in his wallet. He wasn't lying, she was real. He was real. He was a real person. I don't know what it was, but I believed him. We slowly began to grow together as people. I can't describe it. After a year of maintaining communication and learning about who he was, he enrolled in a local community college and began taking courses to earn credits before applying to university. I helped him study for his history class a lot. He's great at math and science, though. I never invited him over to my apartment, however. No matter how much I got to know him, I was still afraid of him. And he knew that. He knew that I couldn't trust him. But tonight, we went out for coffee because he said he had an exam in his World Civ class. When I got there, he said he forgot his book. We just talked for a bit, we laughed, and then he told me he wanted to cook for me. On a whim, I decided to invite him to my apartment. After picking up some things from the grocery store, he came over. I was so nervous that I was shaking. He noticed, he squeezed my hand, and then he made dinner. It was amazing. We talked, we laughed, we sat in the floor and watched a movie on the TV he tried to steal. We made jokes about it. And then he told me that he missed his mom. I gave him a hug. Then he left. I don't know what I feel, but I do know that I can't give up on people anymore. Some people just have the shit end of life. Maybe things have a way of working themselves out? And I miss my dad, too. Update 1. I'm meeting with him tomorrow at his work, while he's on break, to give him some old study materials that I have from a literature class I took in college. It's all so normal, and I'm not afraid. My dad was never afraid, so I shouldn't have to be. I choose not to be. Update 2. Last night, I showed him the post and some of the comments from you guys. He was a little apprehensive about this place, and the fact that I had shared this with the entire world. But the comments really made him so happy. He wanted me to thank you all, and I tried to get him to make a post of his own, but he thinks it's too weird. Plus, he considers himself a bad speller. I just wanted to update everyone with this little unimportant tidbit. My dad's birthday is in a few weeks. I always have to prepare myself for it year-round, really. But this year is different, because I know I have people to support me. Especially a really close, new friend, who came I'd like to say out of nowhere, but he really just came out of my kitchen holding a crowbar. One more thing, when I showed him the post, he looked up at me and went, "Wait. It was a date?" And I got so embarrassed. Then he laughed and told me that he was relieved, because he thought it was a date. We haven't talked about anything else along the lines of dating in the future. Update 3. I cared about him. I cared for him. I did, I can't deny that. In January, right after the new year started, I got a phone call at 2:30 in the morning from him. He was in jail. He and 2 of his friends were arrested for public intoxication and possession of drug paraphernalia. He wanted me to bail him out. I'm a teacher living on a teacher's salary. I said no, I couldn't. This is when things fell apart. Before then, he and I had been incredibly close. We spent Christmas together. I didn't have enough money for a plane ticket home, so I stayed in the city. He came over, we cooked, watched movies. Before Christmas, we spent Thanksgiving together. I helped him study. I helped him get his finances in order. He had no idea how to do taxes and how to do all of the adult stuff, as he said. But I noticed I started doing things I didn't normally do. He would come over in the middle of the night, visibly panicked, and ask if he could stay with me. I let him, no questions asked. I stopped asking questions because I wanted to believe that he was good and everything was fine. He started asking me that if others asked about him if I would lie and say I didn't know him. This scared me, but I assumed it was about work stuff. I wanted it to be his work stuff. He was released from jail about a week later. He didn't talk to me. I called his apartment. Nothing. I came home from work one day and a woman was waiting outside my door. She appeared disheveled. She was wearing a tank top and flip-flops in mid-January in the Northeast. It was cold. When I tried to key into my apartment, she started verbally attacking me. She told me to stay away from him. Like she owned him. She told me that she knew what I did to him. And that I would get what's coming. She left. I was scared out of my mind. Before calling the police, I decided to call his apartment one last time. He answered. I told him about the woman. He apologized, said that he was seeing her. He didn't intend for her to come over and interfere. But that led me to another question. How did she know where I live? And how many others had he told where I lived? He hesitated before answering. I remember that. He just said he was sorry. I immediately packed an overnight bag, grabbed my most valuable items, and went to stay in a hotel. I used my credit card, my only in case of emergencies card. Because I no longer felt safe, because of him. I came back to my apartment the next day. Everything was fine. He came over to apologize. I told him to get out. I started crying. When I'm angry, I cry. He tried to hug me, but I remember picking up a piece of wood. I had a dismantled IKEA shelf, to protect myself. I demanded to know what he was doing. He told me he was selling drugs. He told me that he had to do it because he knew people that would hurt him. Lies. I guess. I don't know. I told him to get out, never want to see him again. Etc. etc. He got angry, threatened to come back with his friends. I was racked with guilt for trusting him. He apologized again, said he was sorry. I was questioning everything about him. I pushed him out. Locked the door. The teaching program I'm a part of rotates teachers in and out of schools across the country. Last year I put in a request to move across the country to be closer to home. 2 weeks after this encounter with him, I found out that my request was accepted and I was set to leave in March. My apartment was broken into and vandalized in early February. At night, he would come and knock on my door. I would call the police but he would always leave before they got there. His guys started harassing me. Nothing was ever stolen, just broken. They broke a glass bottle my dad made for me when I was 6. He knew how much that meant to me. It was shattered. The week before I left, I saw him outside my building. I called the police. He was walking over to me, and I remember having this fiery rage in me. It was this impassioned, red, angry heat that washed over me and I took my keys, which are on a lanyard, and I just started hitting him. I ended up cracking his eye socket. When the police questioned him, they realized he was the one that was harassing me. He was wanted for a myriad of other charges. After he fell down, after I cracked his eye socket with my keys, I started kicking him. I wanted him to die. I really did. Then I thought about what my dad would think. But then I realized, I'm not my dad. I will never be him. I'm different. This is different. People are different. Not all of them are good. But some of them are. I am good. I am a good person. Right now I'm sitting in my new apartment in a brand new city. It's warm. Rent is cheaper. I live in a neighborhood of old people. They're nice. They love that I teach kids. It makes them feel safe, I guess. Some days I leave my front door open and let in a breeze. I'm never afraid. The beach is literally a 7-minute walk, I've timed it, from my back door. I'm happy. So I'm putting this to rest. It's done. It's over. I'm tired. I'm posting this and not checking back anymore. I just wanted to tell someone, because no one in my personal life even knew this was happening.